What actually happened yesterday? I didn't pay much attention. Let's watch a 50-minute video real quick on that. I paid no attention. Let's take a look.
The United States government has successfully carried out a large-scale strike against Venezuela and its leader, President Nicolás Maduro, who has been captured and flown out of the country. This operation was done in conjunction with US law enforcement. This was a message posted by American President Donald Trump on Saturday the 3rd of January at 4:21 a.m. Eastern Time, announcing to the world that the American government had achieved one of its key objectives, the capture of President Maduro.
This video doesn't look good.
The date is important because, one, it's only a few hours ago, and two, it's exactly 35 years since the day that
it looks weird, right? The video doesn't look good.
American forces captured Panamanian leader Manuel Noriega, who, like Maduro, had also been accused of drug trafficking and was clinging on to power after a disputed election. In a later interview with Fox News, President Trump announced the Maduro...
It's weird how all these little mini countries with oil are always unstable, fucked up, revolutions, etc. It's weird, right? It's weird.
Maduro and his wife had been taken to the USS Iwo Jima, one of the American warships that have been prowling the Caribbean. According to a statement by Attorney General Pam Bondi,
man, that woman, the whole Epstein thing with her, man, it's just insanity.
In a US court. The announcement came just hours after residents of Caracas, including several CNN correspondents, reported hearing explosions and seeing military aircraft flying overhead. According to the correspondents, the first blast that they witnessed happened at 12:50 a.m. Eastern Time, which means that in barely 3 hours, American forces had captured a city
clean
and
operation,
evacuated him from his country. I'll say that again. This entire operation took just 3.5 hours. So because 2026 has decided to get off to an insane start, that's why I'm here on a Saturday afternoon, let's examine what we know, what we don't know, and what this attack means for the wider region. Let's start with what we know as the time of around 4 p.m. Central European Time. 4:15, we are getting this out. On Friday, the 2nd of January, President Maduro appeared on state television while meeting with a delegation of Chinese officials in Caracas. This was the last time that he would be seen in public. A few hours later, the strikes began. A local journalist who spoke with NPR reported hearing 2 explosions at La Carlota military airport, the main airbase in Caracas, followed by fires on the runway that were quickly put out. Immediately afterward, they reported hearing similar detonations in other parts of the city and planes flying low over Caracas for about an hour. Quoting, "The whole ground shook. This is horrible. We heard explosions and planes." The Associated Press reported that at least 7 explosions were heard in Caracas during that time, and according to Ocean Defender, an ex-account that uses open source intelligence to track conflicts around the world, Fuerte Tuna, the capital's main military base, had also been targeted in these strikes. Other sites that were targeted include
this was all done with 12 F-22s and some stealth drones.
And signals antenna site, La Guaira Airport, Venezuela's primary
and a bunch of Tomahawks.
Caracas, and Hirarate Airport, an airbase in Miranda State. While other locations
International is a joke at this point, yeah.
These are the only ones that have been confirmed by sources on the ground. According to American officials who spoke with CBS, Delta Force, an elite special forces unit of the US Army, carried out the attacks.
I'm a big fan of Delta Force. I've been reading some stuff on them last year. I like Delta Force, man. They're fucking sick. And I think they're clearly the best special forces on Earth. Clearly. And very sick that they did this, man.
Officials told CBS,
but there isn't much information how they did it and stuff.
Conducting the mission
Delta Force is scary, bro.
Day,
these guys you don't want against you, man.
Against ISIS targets took precedence.
No. Don't David Goggins right here. David Goggins was a shitty SEAL, man. SEALs are not that good, man. Delta Force is something very different.
The days after Christmas...
They're much better than SAS. If you actually read books and you watch documentaries, they're performing better than SAS in a lot of tests.
3 more options, but the operation was held off until the weather was favorable enough to proceed. And proceed it did. Once the dust had settled, Maduro had been captured, and Trump made his announcement on Truth Social. And with that, the unspoken assumptions of that last 3.5 decades of US policy towards Latin America had been...
Must be sad to train so much to serve a leader like this. I will think that people like Delta Force are just happy that they're getting their hands dirty. I think that these are kind of people that are sitting in the base and they're like, wait, what? You want us to take out Maduro? Fuck yeah. I think they're excited about this stuff.
On their head. At the moment, it seems that there won't be any further attacks. Mike Lee, a US senator who spoke with Secretary of State Marco Rubio after the attacks, posted on X that the secretary anticipated no further action now that Maduro was in custody.
SEALs are better at certain things. I think they're also much better at killing Korean fishermen. Yeah, they're much better there.
He also announced that Maduro would stand trial on criminal charges in the US, where he has been charged with narco-terrorism, corruption.
This is the biggest ironic farce, man, where if the president has to stand trial, he just fucking gives himself immunity, but now this guy has to stand trial, man.
Drug trafficking and a host of other criminal charges. Not that the lack of planned further attacks made much difference in Caracas. The government announced a state of emergency, demanded proof that Maduro was
Osama bin Laden was SEALs, and yeah, what happened? He was an old man in his bed, and they fucking shot him. Couldn't even take him to custody.
The UN Security Council to discuss the US attacks. Venezuelan Defense Minister Vladimir.
SEALs always try out to become Delta Force, but Delta Force never tries out to become SEALs. My man gets it. That guy gets it.
Padrino Lopez.
Hey, I had this guy earlier, Vladimir Padrino Lopez, but I think he died. No, Vladimir Padrino Lopez. Hey, my man.
As well, calling for calm and a unified front, announced that the military would be deployed across the nation to defend against what he called the worst aggression ever against Venezuela. Quoting me here, they've attacked us.
The problem is, if you're Venezuela, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna fucking do, bro? You're gonna do fucking nothing.
But they will not subdue us. Let's not succumb to the panic the enemy seeks to
You're gonna do fucking nothing.
Additionally, Caracas urged supporters to take to the streets. This call was answered in neighborhoods in which Maduro enjoys popular support, where, according to the AP, armed individuals and ununiformed members of a civilian militia took to the streets while holding posters of Maduro.
What's mostly German in Special Force? KSK, Kommando Spezialkräfte. They're racist, though. There's always, like, little articles coming out in Germany how a lot of the German army is a bit too far right, man. They have like weird tattoos, they have weird symbols.
Power, but vehicles move freely. Outside of Venezuela, reactions have been varied, to say the least. In Latin America, Argentinian President Javier Milei celebrated the news, saying that freedom had finally come to Venezuela, while Colombian President Gustavo Petro, who has also been a target of Trump's ire, condemned the strikes as an assault on the sovereignty of Latin America. Warning of a humanitarian crisis. Additionally, Colombia is deploying its military to its 2,219-kilometer-long border with Venezuela, ostensibly to handle the influx of asylum seekers, but likely also as a defensive measure in case the conflict expands beyond Venezuela's borders. In Europe, the reaction has been more measured, with Germany saying that it was watching the situation with great
Well, it's Europe. What are they going to do? They're going to do nothing.
concern, Spain offering to mediate, and
no one cares about the EU's opinion on this.
Urging restraint
because everybody knows they're going to do nothing about it anyway.
Lacked legitimacy.
I just want to go to the corner and shut up.
Might have been the reaction, or lack of it, from Venezuela's most important allies, Iran, Cuba, and Russia. For Russia's part, the Kremlin said it was deeply worried by the attack, saying it was important to prevent escalation and to use dialogue to find a way out of the conflict. What it didn't say was that today's events came just months after Moscow and Caracas signed a new strategic partnership meant in part to improve Venezuela's military. A partnership that seems to have been about as useful to Caracas as Iran's partnership with Russia was for Tehran during last year's war with Israel. Savage. Speaking of Tehran, Iran's foreign ministry described the attack as a flagrant violation of the national sovereignty and territorial integrity of Venezuela, while Cuba's President Miguel Diaz-Canel Bermudez called for the international community to denounce what he described as state terrorism against Venezuelan people. And just in case you're playing Axis of Resistance bingo there, China, another friend of Venezuela, is yet to publicly respond. With all this in mind, let's now look at what we don't know. First, there is the question of the legality of the strikes. While Senator Lee, a constitutional lawyer, insisted that the Trump administration was justified in conducting the strike since the president had the authority to protect U.S. personnel from an actual or imminent attack, Democratic lawmakers, including Senator Andy Kim, a former diplomat, have termed the action illegal, saying that it put American lives at risk and signaled to other superpowers that targeting a sitting head of state is acceptable to the U.S. government. Now, we're not experts on the nuances of the American Constitution, but we can guarantee that this is a question that Congress and possibly the Supreme Court will have to answer at some point in the future. Second, we don't know who is now in charge of Venezuela and how long their rule will last. At the moment,
they have an interim president, the vice president, right? And by the, I read that the Constitution of Venezuela says there has to be elections within the next 30 days or some shit.
And the vice president will take over, maintaining the current status quo. However, there are two distinct scenarios that we have to consider. One, that America negotiates with the remaining government officials to hand over power to Edmundo Gonzalez, who Washington recognized as Venezuela's rightful president after the contested 2024 elections. Or two, that the military takes advantage of the confusion and disarray created by the American strikes to seize power in a coup. It wouldn't be the first time
like Venezuelan
the military
Bogosian
sought to gain power by taking advantage of a crisis. This was a fear expressed by Pedro Reyes Arroyo, a Venezuelan entrepreneur who, speaking exclusively to war fronts, said that the vacuum of power left in Maduro's absence could embolden individuals in the military to launch violent bids for the presidency, resulting in, and we'll quote him here, a bloodbath. If the second scenario were to occur, there is the possibility that Washington will be forced to launch another operation to install a government that has their support. The third thing we don't know, and which may be the most important, is whether Maduro made a deal with Washington and the attacks were theater to give him a face-saving exit.
Nah, I don't know about
While
that.
this does seem unlikely, some in the Venezuelan
That's a
opposition
bit
polls
far-fetched, man. That's
news
like
that
a
this
guy in
could be
Twitch
the
chat.
case, given that Maduro has repeatedly expressed his willingness to negotiate with Trump. However, we've got to be honest here, this doesn't seem super plausible considering that Senator Lee announced Maduro would be facing charges in the United States. It's also unlikely that Trump would be willing to let Maduro save face after the acrimonious year that the two have had. Additionally, Rubio is a long-time Maduro opponent who has been pushing for the latter's ouster, so the possibility that Washington chose to be gracious to Maduro is incredibly slim.
All this power in the hand of these Muppets,
ain't
man.
zero. So what's this mean for the region? When looking at this attack against Venezuela, it is tempting to see it as just part of Trump and Rubio's campaign against Maduro. However,
Maduro should have just been on Epstein Island, man. He would be fine. Nobody will even talk to him. Nobody will touch the guy, bro. He will be super safe.
There's a bigger strategy at play here, one that was revealed in the recently published National Security Strategy. Now, in case you missed our video analyzing that document, here's what you need to know. On Latin America, the Trump administration announced that it would be reinstituting the Monroe Doctrine, which basically means that the entire Western Hemisphere is Washington's backyard. Other superpowers, they are not welcome, and regimes in every country need to be aligned with America's interests, or they will have to deal with an angry Washington. This is why the operation matters far beyond Venezuela's borders. Every leader in Latin America is now watching and calculating. If the United States can conduct a decapitation strike against a sitting president in a matter of hours, what does that mean for their own
So it's a bit of a symbol to the world. Like, we can do this to you, fuckface.
security? What
We can get you
red lines
anywhere.
exist anymore? Cuba's got to be particularly nervous right now. The island nation depends heavily on Venezuelan oil and has sent thousands of personnel.
He's gonna say that the Monroe Doctrine. I'm introducing the Monroe Doctrines, beautiful doctrines, old doctrines, back when things were good.
To Venezuela over the years. It has also spent entire decades on Washington's hit list, with the CIA infamously trying to bump off Fidel Castro with everything from regular bullets to exploding cigars. With Maduro gone, Cuba loses a critical economic lifeline, while its leadership will be terrified.
Trump actually said Monroe Doctrines?
They're next for special
obviously
US
he did.
treatment. Nicaragua's Daniel Ortega, another vocal critic of Washington with close ties to Russia and China, must also be wondering if he's on the list. And while Colombian President Gustavo Petro is likely safe due to Bogota's long history of cooperation with Washington, he is likely, at the very least, feeling a bit anxious today. But it's not just America's adversaries who should be recalculating. Even friendly governments should be asking questions.
The VDV
about
is
what their
looking at
relationship
Delta
with
Force very
Washington
mad.
means for their rule. Mexico's President Claudia
This is why
Sheinbaum.
I always believe this, man. America is the real big scary in this world. Russia, fucking monkeys, can't even take Ukraine. China, probably a paper tiger.
Has maintained a delicate
The
balance
US, man, that is the real scary fuckers. When they go all out, man, you know why they don't have healthcare, man.
Pressure to more definitively support what Trump wants, even if it goes against what she wants. Brazil's
It's scary though when the
Lula
big power of the
has
US
tried
is
to
in the
position
hands of
himself as a
someone like Trump,
mediator
man.
in
It's so
regional
crazy.
conflicts. That role just became a lot more complicated. The operation also changes the calculus for Chinese and Russian investment in the region. Beijing has poured billions
Personally, I'm most
into
afraid of
Latin
women.
American infrastructure, mining and energy projects. Moscow has sold weapons and provided technical assistance to several governments. Both have used Venezuela as their primary foothold in the hemisphere. If Washington can remove the
to bring
government
back the Viet
this
Cong?
decisively, does that make other countries think twice about deepening ties with Beijing or Moscow? Or does it push them to seek stronger guarantees from those powers? And do these guarantees mean anything in the face of a Washington that has proven extremely capable of removing a leader in his own capital city? Again, we have to insist here.
It's like this smile the whole time, because even he's like, what the fuck is going on?
That's so short, it makes Israel's decisive 12-day conflict against Iran look like the 30 years war. There's also the question of what happens to Venezuela's oil. The country has the world's largest proven oil reserve. With Maduro gone, those reserves could be up for grabs. China has massive investments in Venezuelan oil infrastructure. Russian companies have been involved in joint ventures. American companies were largely shut out under sanctions. The scramble to control Venezuelan oil could reshape global energy markets. Finally, there's the humanitarian dimension.
One sec. How much percentage of the global oil production does Venezuela have? Like, I have 12 to 22 or some shit, I guess. 0.8 of crude oil output. Fucking nothing. Other data source indicates 0.9. Production has declined, blah, blah, blah. Damn, wow. Crazy.
Venezuela has already
like
produced
1%.
one of the largest refugee crises in recent history, with millions fleeing the country since 2015. Colombia, which hosts the largest number of Venezuelan refugees, is already deploying troops to the border. If violence escalates or the economy collapses further, that number could surge. Peru, Ecuador, Chile, and other countries hosting Venezuelan migrants are bracing for what comes next. And hovering above all of this is the question of what will happen if Venezuela splits apart, if the remnants of the regime try to cling to power while the people rise up in the streets. Could there be wide-scale violence, a civil war? Or will the regime or military quickly consolidate under new leadership and carry on effectively as before? As Tiziano Breda, senior analyst for Latin America at ACLED, has noted, quote, a smooth transition remains unlikely, and the risk of resistance from pro-regime armed groups, including elements within the military and Colombian rebel networks active in the country, remains high. In short, we can't say for certain what will happen next. What we can say is...
Okay, cool, man. I feel like, my opinion is, this is all forgotten in 2 days. In 2 days, this is all forgotten, and then the next crazy thing happens, man.
She slipped through my fingers like sand. Heard that she had a man. Now I'm just sitting here sad. Oh well, ship sail. She slipped through my fingers like sand.